Hey everyone, welcome to my aromage deck profile. Uh, it's basically a 40 card deck, 12 monsters, 12 traps, 16 spells. I had a lot of fun with this deck on the weekend. I versed Ghost Strix, Fluffles, and also a 6 Samurai deck with PK Fire. First round was 6 Sams, wasn't a great build of 6 Sams, so I ended up beating them quite easily. Next round was Ghost Strix. Ghost Strix won his last round, so he gave me a bit of a run for my money. Just kept flipping my stuff face down, really annoying, but I ended up getting him. PK Fire, the round before the finals. Um, really struggled with that fight. It took me a lot of negating and popping around my opponent's stuff so I could get plays off. Although I think it was first or second game, I ended up getting Cactus Bouncer out straight away with Jasmine, and they just could not beat me. Fluffles in the finals, I basically killed him because he made a misplay on the third game. He set a Twin Twister, hoping for me to set my strikes and solemn warnings. I ended up pulling into an MST and just getting rid of his Twin Twister straight away and then playing around him and beating him for game. I'll get into it. The monsters we use is Jasmine at 3. Pretty self-explanatory. Nita at 3. You gain life points, you draw a card. Uh, to note, all these effects when you gain life points are mandatory. So Jasmine, if you gain life points, you don't have a choice, you must draw a card. If your life points are higher than your opponent's, though, with Jasmine you're allowed to do an additional normal summon of plant monster. Next card on the list is Rosemary. As I said before, all these life point gain effects are mandatory, so if Rosemary is on the field by herself and your opponent has no monsters and you gain life points, you must turn her into defense mode, you don't have a choice. But her other effect is while your life points are higher than your opponent's and a plant type monster you control is battling, your opponent cannot activate monster effects, so she's basically an Armades towards monster effects, really good. Next card is Cananga. Cananga is one of these cards where I've been and ahhing for a long time, but now I know that she's really strong. If you got her on field and your life points are higher than your opponent's, all your opponent's monsters lose 500 attack and defense, which is basically a big play. So if you've got a problem card and you can get 1 to 2 of these things out, that's 500 to 1000 attack and defense it loses, so it makes it a lot easier to get over. Her other effect is when she gains life points, target one spell and trap card your opponent controls, return it to the hand. If you can trigger that in your opponent's end phase after they've set everything, you can potentially send back a solemn warning, a strike, or a mirror force. Really good. The last aromage monster is Bergamot. I only run him at 1, don't really like to see him. If I ever need him, I do search him out. Um, if you gain life points while he's on the field, he gains 1000 attack and defense. Also, while your life points are higher than your opponent's, he does piercing damage. Well, plant type monsters do piercing damage, really good. The last monster on the list is 2 Cactus Bouncer. You have this bad boy on field with any other plant monster. Neither player can special summon. This deck, I do not special summon, so it's absolutely amazing. I can just constantly keep playing. Lock your opponent out with this thing, and they basically struggle for game because it's hard to get over a 1800 beater without special summoning. And also, if you trigger Aroma Gardens effect with him on board, he's 2300, really hard to get over. That's it for the monsters. Now for the spells. As I showed before, I run Aroma Garden, must run Aroma Garden. Once per turn while you control an Aroma monster, you can gain 500 life points. And also, if you do that, all your monsters gain 500 attack and defense until the end of your opponent's turn. You keep that bonus even if you play through and put another field card on the zone. So you can play 1 Aroma Garden, use the effect, gain 500 attack and defense. play another one, gain 500 again, gain an extra 500 attack and defense, so that's 1000 bonus on top straight away. The next effect on it is roam monster you control is destroyed by battle or card effect, gain 1000 life points. Really good. I play the one necrovally, basically a little bit of tech. Um, Stops your opponent playing with their graveyard, so neither player can banish from graveyards. You can't add cards back from your graveyard to your hand or back to your deck unless it's by its own effect. Also locks out Call the Horned and Oasis of Dragon Souls and Soul Charge, stuff like that. 2 terraforming, only run it at 2, basically self-explanatory. Search for your Roma Garden, or if not, search for your necrovally, just to get into your plays a bit quicker. Run 2 Poison of the Old Man. This card's really good. You can trigger off all your effects off in your opponent's turn. So, summon the Jasmine, use your Aroma Garden, draw a card. Opponent's turn, use Poison of the Old Man, draw another card. Really good, gives you a bit of a plus. Otherwise, if you've almost killed your opponent and they're starting to stall you out a bit too much, you can burn them for game with it, 800 damage. Next spell card is Pot of Duality. As I said, I don't special summon with this deck. So Pot of Duality, basically, it's a semi-search to the deck. Reveal the top 3 cards, add 1 to the hand. Can only activate once per turn. Bit of a hurt, but that's alright. Next is Card of Demise. If you can pull this card with 1 monster and the rest are spells and traps, just set all your spells and traps, summon your monster, play this card, draw 3 cards. Hopefully pull 3 spells or traps, or if you've summoned the Jasmine, pull another monster, so pull your Cactus Bouncer with Jasmine. Trigger Jasmine's effect, draw a card, user effect of an additional normal summon, drop Cactus Bouncer on field, have 5 back row, and just laugh at your opponent. The last spell card for the lineup is Mystical Space Typhoon. This is far better in this build than Twin Twister would be. Card of Demise, basically you have to discard your whole hand at the end phase, so you basically set all your spells and traps, really simple. So Mystical Space Typhoon over Twin Twister in this build, guaranteed. That's it for the spells. For the trap lineup, 2 humid wins. I am going to bump this up to 3 at some stage. It is the searcher for the deck for your aroma monsters. You pay 1000 life points, search for an aroma monster, and then you can trigger your secondary effect if your life points are lower than your opponent's to gain 500 life points, triggering off all your effects again for your monsters. 2 dried winds. Really don't like this card that much anymore. It was quite fun to start with, but I'm thinking about dropping it down to 1 and using the other one for an extra humid wins. If you gain life points, you can target one face-up monster your opponent controls, destroy it. The thing is, if you're going into mid to late game and you're winning and you're beating your opponent's starting to set all their monsters, so you can't use dried winds to destroy their monsters. And the other effect of dried winds is, if you have 3000 or more life points than your opponent, you can pay the difference in life points and destroy monsters your opponent controls. Whose attack is equal or less than the life points you paid. So if you pay 3000 life points, your opponent has 2 monsters with 1500 attack, you can destroy both monsters quite easily. Next card is Rivalry of Warlords. The whole deck is plants, so really doesn't hurt you at all. It hurts Cosmos a lot, slows down Monarchs, just makes them think about their plays, and problematic cards, so it pulls out their Twin Twisters and their Mystical Space Typhoons. Next card is Lose One Turn. Lose One Turn's really good in combination with Cactus Bouncer. Although, with Cactus Bouncer on board and his effects live where you own another plant monster, they can't special summon anyway. But if they are able to get rid of Cactus Bouncer and you've got Lose One Turn on the field, it means all their special summon monsters go to defense mode. So next turn you can just summon a Rosemary and just beat over them really easily, because the monsters that a lot of people are running at the moment don't have very high defense. I run 2 Quaking Mirror Force as well. Um, Basically, use this to save my monsters, bring out bergamot after I've used it, attack with piercing damage if my life points are higher, and yeah, just push for game. The next trap card is 2 solemn strikes, and I also run the 1 solemn warning. Since I gain a lot of life points in this deck, I really don't mind paying some life points to stop my opponent from playing. Solemn Strike basically negate an opponent's summon, or a summon of a monster, and also negate a monster effect. Solemn Warning, just negate anything you want for a cost of 2,000, really strong, and basically these 3 cards here are staples. I hope you've enjoyed this deck profile, and hopefully I'll bring you another one in the near future. Laters.